I wanted to give maybe some feedback or just prod the discussion forward on some of the awesome Christian YouTube channels that have started up lately. And I'm thinking in particular, every time I film this, the bird screams. Every time I start, it starts yelling at me. I've done this like 8 times, and every time I start talking, this bird flies over and yells at me. I've been watching things like Gavin Ortlund's YouTube channel, Truth Unites. Austin, I believe his name is, at Gospel Simplicity. I really love Father Seraphim at Mole Monastery. Pints with Aquinas, in my opinion, kind of lost its touch a little bit with philosophy and is focusing more on like being a talk show now. But they've been doing all this sort of like this new wave of Christian YouTube and apologetics where it's like very ecumenical friendly, loving and caring work on trying to be united and like this intersectarian dialogue. I'll lay my cards on the table. I'm Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox. I was a catechumen for a few years and then recently was chrismated. And no one knows who I am, of course, because I don't have a YouTube following, but I'm a philosopher. I have a master's in philosophy, and I teach at Oklahoma State University. I'm a meta-ethicist, and I do logic and confirmation theory. I also do philosophy of religion, or I wouldn't be making this video. But just to preface, I'm not a historian. I'm not a theologian. I'm not a biblical critic. I'm not a church historian. I'm not a canon law expert. I don't know what I'm talking about on a lot of this stuff. So take what I say with a grain of salt. I'm a narrowly trained modern analytic philosopher who is applying that to construct theories and rigorous accounts of things about pretty narrow issues. I'm basically like, if you have the humanists and like humanitarian people, and then on the other hand you have scientists, I'm kind of like a physicist for the humanities. I'm not giving these big historical overviews of things. I'm gonna have to turn this mic down for this stupid bird. I love birds, but they are loud. Man, they're loud. Okay, so take what I say on historical issues with a grain of salt. I'm just not qualified. But I do want to kind of offer a couple observations and maybe constructive criticism to clarify some of our discussions I'm seeing on YouTube. So first, I really like the new trend of like this ecumenical dialogue and intersectarian dialogue on YouTube. I remember when Christians first got on YouTube, they did 2 things. They battled the new atheists, and that was horrible, and just like it was such a bitter conflict. And then the second thing they did was they battled each other, and I think Dr. William Lane Craig and Dr. James White are really the examples of that. Like some of the conflict between like Dr. White and his followers and Reasonable Faith were like so bitter, and I just hate, I really, it made me withdraw from YouTube apologetics and Christian online culture. I just couldn't stand it. I still can't. But this new wave of Christian YouTubers where it is very, the approach is like, and I really think Austin from Gospel Simplicity really made an influence on this. It's like he's authentic and he's just inquiring about the truth, and we can do that together, right? I love it. But one thing I did want to address is just that I think that there's like not talking past each other. That's not what it is. That's a cop-out anyway. There's just this like difference in paradigm between me and I think other Orthodox especially, and everybody talking on YouTube. And no one's really said it explicitly yet, but I think I could sum it up. So I recently saw Dr. or Reverend Joshua Schupping, who I've talked to. He's a great guy, about this, with Gavin Ortlund giving an interview, and basically they're talking about why he left Orthodoxy and became Protestant. And it seemed like the reasoning was there are these doctrines and theological positions the Orthodox Church takes that I disagree with. Therefore, I shouldn't be Orthodox. And that's how kind of the interview presented it. I don't think that's necessarily accurate, his thought process, of course, I'll let him describe it and respond, because we talked about this at length. But I do think this is the mentality that a lot of people have, and I'm worried that it's dangerous to have these theological discussions without first framing it. So here's my thing. There are 3 conclusions I want to talk about. First, this church isn't the one true church. Conclusion 1. Conclusion 2, this church is the one we should all be in. We have most reason to be a member of, or we should be loyal to. Something like that. 3, these doctrines that the church characteristically teaches are the official dogmas of this church, and if you're a member of that church, you have to believe them. Something like that. So, topic 1 is, what is the one true church and how do we know it? How do we, what's the criteria? What's it even mean? And topic 2 is, what are my reasons for or against going to one church, being loyal to one church? When should I be a member, right? What's the criteria for that? When should I pursue this one denomination? And then 3, what, part of, to answer 1 and 2, you'll have to get into the issue of what are the official positions of this church, right? And it's not as easy, especially in orthodoxy, as it first seems, to say the official positions of orthodoxy, unless we're talking mostly about the filioque and core issues that divide us. But so there is this inferential gap I'm seeing in everybody's reasoning, and it might just be a tacit premise in their arguments or thought processes that they're not saying, but I would like them to say it, because all of us that make content or teach are educators, and we are influencing people, and if you don't give people a guide on how to take the information you give them and process it and actually apply it, we are failing. And it's dangerous. Okay, so here's the issue. If Reverend Schupping or other people spend a long time arguing and coming up with their positions in good faith on theological positions and the disagreements the various parts of the church, different Christian sects have with one another, let's say we list them out. We say, orthodoxy teaches this, this, and this, either officially or characteristically, which means it's just a popular consensus teaching, but maybe it's not dogma. Orthodoxy teaches this, this, and this. I don't think any of that's true, or I disagree with this, this, and this. Therefore, it's not the one true church. Therefore, it's not the church I should be a part of or be loyal to. Therefore, it's not the church we should all unify under and submit to. Therefore, you see what I'm saying? I don't see how those, if we list off our theological agreement and disagreements, how it follows from that we should be a part or not be a part of that church, or whether it's a one true church or not. And my question is, people walking their dogs, so you might hear them. My question is, how do we fill in this logical inferential gap between, I'll put it on the screen, maybe I'll float between these trees, that'd be cool. How do we fill the logical inferential gap? Premise 1, I agree or disagree with these teachings of this Christian sect. Gap. Conclusion, I should not be a part of that sect, or that sect is not the one true sect, or that sect is not what we should all unify under. Something like that. How do I make that leap? I don't know. And the thing that orthodoxy does well, and I'm really drawn to, is, well, maybe I should set up with a story. I did not become Orthodox because I had a list of theological positions that I agreed with orthodoxy on, and I said, that's enough, I'm going to be Orthodox. I have a bad habit of doing that type of stuff in the past because I'm an analytic philosopher, that's all in my head. But for the first time in my life, I realized religion, Christianity, is not about it can't be reduced to pure theological concepts. It has to be reduced to, and I take issue with this language, I'm sorry, when people say you want a relationship with Christ, I don't like that phrase. I think it's a cliche. But I also think it's too vague, and kind of makes it too individualistic. But that kind of nicely sums it up. Christianity can't be reduced to a set of doctrines or dogmas. There are, wow, what are they doing to their dog? Oh, they're seeing a chicken. I'm at a park with chickens right now, and like the dogs are freaking out. Anyway, you can't reduce Christianity to its dogmas or theoretical theological positions. And I don't mean theory wrong. I'm talking as a philosopher. Theory just means in regards to truth and what you believe or disbelieve or how you model reality in your head. Practical reason has to do with your behavior and way of life, and it might include both of those things. They're tightly related. But I'm saying Christianity can't be reduced to propositions that we assent to or not assent to. It's a way of life. And it's not just a way of life. It's also not reducible to its parts. You can't say Christianity is just beliefs plus practice. It doesn't work like that. It's what Thomas Kuhn would call a paradigm. Christianity is a paradigm. It is a set of beliefs. It's a way of life. It's practices. But it's all those things synthesized together into something more than their parts. A paradigm. Look up Thomas Kuhn, the Copernican revolution, or if you want something a little bit more difficult, the structure of scientific revolutions. Or look at my blog, which I'll link to below, for an introduction to paradigms. But a paradigm is this like organic, holistic sort of model or like system that we have that it's like the glasses we see through. It might be a mental map even. The Copernican solar system, or the Great Chain of Being. Those are partial paradigms. But Christianity is something much more organic that can't be reduced to a set of dogmas or doctrines. It can't just be reduced to any of its parts. It's something more. And when I realized that, I realized I had to shed what I grew up with and pursue something more. I had to kind of rediscover for myself the Christian paradigm. And I realized, man, these dogs are just getting killed by chickens, I think. I realized that it took me, seriously, it took me like 10 years from the time I left high school to becoming an adjunct to really realize that, oh, this paradigm never stopped existing. I have just been divorced from it because I grew up evangelical, and frankly, the worst kind of evangelical, where they hate history and they hate the intellect and they don't want you to know anything. Because I'm sorry, like a lot of evangelicals in Southern California are like that, and it's an institutional thing in evangelical churches. There goes the bird telling me not to be so mean and critical. But what I'm saying is it was withheld from me, and I was never allowed to know about Christian tradition. And I realized I've been working myself to the bone at my detriment of my mental and physical health to rediscover something that if I would have just been in the Orthodox or even the Catholic Church or maybe a high Anglican church, they would have given me that paradigm, and I would not have had to do it myself and be so lonely and sad and broken now, mentally and physically. Like it just, studying at the level I've been studying at has taken a toll on my life that I will never recover from. I'm not trying to be dramatic. I sacrificed a lot for it. And it's painful. And I could have saved a lot of time, and I could have also loved God more by just being a part of these churches. Anyway, the point is, I for once in my life stopped being such an analytic jerk and breaking everything into little theological and philosophical tidbits and assenting to them, and I realized, stop it, bird. I asked you to be quiet. I realized I want to be in the churches, I want to be part of the church that has this paradigm, is protected and preserved and nourished it and gives it to me. And gives it to all people through history. And I realized you can't reduce the church and the notion of the true church and the notion of our reasons for being member of the church to feel purely theological, theoretical reasons, purely dogmatic reasons. It has to be holistic. I think the Orthodox Church, the thing they do the best is that they didn't lose the Christian paradigm with its supernatural aspects, with its weird Jewish roots, and have preserved a lot of that. And even though maybe they're not perfect, they've preserved and handed that down well. I also think that other traditions have in various aspects too, but they allowed me to see something a little bit different, and I came to become Orthodox through that, not through pure theological disputes. And now the question is, how do you fill in those inferential gaps of those arguments? And I don't know. But I can tell you what you don't do. You don't reduce everything to theological disagreements. We need more principles, and we have to think about what's the proper function of the church as Christ intended it. And a lot of those functions I'm discovering is Orthodoxy fulfills that. Catholicism fulfills that. Maybe other traditions fulfill various parts of it. But the dispute can't just be over narrow theology. It has to be something more. We can't be reductive about our theological and religious reasoning. And I want to know, how do you Gavin Ortlund? How do you Austin? How do you Schupping? How do you guys fill in that gap to these arguments I'm putting somewhere here? I want to know. Anyway, there's a bunch of people coming, so I'll cut it short there. But yeah, I want to know. And I'll have some thoughts on that too. All right, goodbye everybody.